Okay, so we're back in the Daf Yomi for February 3rd. This is Sanhedrin 48. So we're in Sanhedrin, so this is like Mishnah Parak Vav, so chapter 6. This is Daf 48. Okay, we derive the halacha governing the accessories related to a dead person, such as a shroud, from the halacha governing the accessories used in idol worship, such as like the animal sacrifice to the idol. This is to the exclusion of a heifer whose neck is broken, which is itself consecrated for the ceremony taking place in the valley and is not an accessory used in that ceremony. The Gemara asks, and Abaye, what is the reason that he did not derive the halacha by way of a verbal analogy from the halacha governing the accessories used in idol worship? The Gemara answers, Abaye could have said to you that we learn the halacha governing something that involves the proper way of conduct, such as burying the dead, from the halacha governing something that involves the proper way of conduct. That is the right relating to the heifer whose neck is broken, as these are both mitzvot by Torah law. This is to the exclusion of objects of idol worship which do not involve a proper way of conduct. So the Gemara presents a mnemonic for the forthcoming series of attempted proofs concerning the dispute between Rava and Abaya. So, Siman, so the sign is keep, so a scarf, Nafshe, monument, Dahatziva, that was hewn, Nechisa, pouch, and Du'umana, craftsman. Okay, the Gemara raises an objection against Rava from a Braita discussing the ritual impurity that is contracted by treading. If a scarf is ritually impure with impurity imparted by treading, and after a tzav sat or lay down upon it, and its owner then designated it as a cover for a Torah scroll, it is pure of the more severe level of ritual impurity, that which is imparted by treading, even without immersion, because it is no longer an object intended to be lied upon or sat upon. But it is impure with the less severe ritual impurity, that which is contracted by touching that which is treaded upon. And this indicates that mere designation has halakhic significance and validity. The Gemara rejects this argument. Say that the Braita should read as follows. The owner of the scarf designated as a cover for a Torah scroll and wrapped it around the scroll so that there was not only designation but an action as well. The Gemara asks, if there was an action, why do I need for the Braita to say that the owner designated it and wrapped it? Wouldn't wrapping alone have sufficed? The Gemara answers, the Braita is in accordance with the opinion of Rav Chisda, as Rav Chisda says with regard to this cloth, that one designated for the purpose of bundling phylacteries in it. If he already bundled phylacteries in it, then it's forbidden to bundle coins in it, as it was designated and used as an accessory of sacred object. But if he merely designated it for that purpose, but did not yet bundle phylacteries in it, or if he bundled phylacteries in it, but did not previously designate it for bundling phylacteries, then it is permitted to bundle coins in it. Consequently, in the case of the scarf, it was necessary both to designate it as a cover for the Torah scroll and to actually wrap it around the scroll. So according to Abaye, who said that designation is a significant matter, the halacha is as follows. If he designated the cloth for the purpose of bundling phylacteries in it, even if he did not bundle phylacteries in it, it is prohibited to bundle money in it. In a case where he already bundled phylacteries in it, if he designated the cloth for bundling phylacteries, yes, it is prohibited to bundle money in it. But if he did not designate it for bundling phylacteries, bundling money in the cloth is not prohibited. The Gemara suggests, come in here, Tashama, another proof against Rava, with regard to a monument that was built as a memorial for the sake of an individual while he was still alive. One is permitted to derive benefit from it, as it is like any other construction, but if even a single row of stones was added to it for the sake of a corpse, one is prohibited from deriving benefit from it, apparently even before the deceased is buried there. This seems to indicate that mere designation is a significant matter. The Gemara answers, with what are we dealing here? Are we dealing with a case where the corpse was placed under the monument so that it became forbidden not through mere designation, but by way of an action? The Gemara answers, if so, why does the Braita specifically mention that a row of stones was added? If the deceased was buried under the monument, one should be prohibited from deriving benefit from it even when a row of stones was not added, as the entire monument has been used for the dead. The Gemara explains, no, it is necessary for the Braita to state that a row of stones was added in order to teach us that even if the corpse was later removed from the grave, the monument remains forbidden, since it has been designated for a corpse. Rafram Bar Papa says that Rav Chisda says, if the corpse was later removed from the grave and one recognizes the row of stones that had been added to the monument in the dead man's honor, he may remove that row of stones, and it is permitted to derive benefit from the rest of the construction. The Gemara suggests, come in here, Tashema, and yet another proof against Rava from a Braita. If one hewed a grave for his deceased father in one place, and then went and buried him in a different place, the son may never be buried in the grave that he had dug. This indicates that mere designation is a significant matter. The Gemara answers, there the son may not be buried in the grave that he had dug, because that would detract from the honor that he must show his father, not because the designation is significant with regard to the status of a grave in general. The Gemara comments, so too it is reasonable that the son may not be buried in the grave that he had dug only because of the honor due to his father, as the latter clause of the same Baraita teaches. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, even if one hewed stones for his father's grave, and then went and buried him in a different place, the son himself may never be buried in a tomb constructed from those stones. The Gemara explains, granted, if you say that the son may not be buried in the grave that he dug for his father because the honor that must be shown his father, it is well understood why he can also not be buried in a tomb constructed from stones that he hewed for his father's grave. But if you say that it is because of designation, the son should be permitted to be buried in such a tomb, is there anyone who says that spinning yarn in order to weave it into cloth for shrouds is regarded as designated an item for a dead person, resulting in a prohibition against deriving benefit from the yarn? In such a case, there is certainly no prohibition. And the case of hewing stones for a tomb is analogous to the case of spinning yarn in order to weave it into cloth. The Gemara suggests, Tashema, come in here, a proof in support of Rava from a Baraita. With regard to a fresh grave that was not designated for a particular individual, one is permitted to derive benefit from it. But if even a non-viable newborn that died was cast into it, one is prohibited from deriving benefit from the grave. It may be inferred from here that if a non-viable newborn was cast into the grave, yes, one is prohibited from deriving benefit from the grave, but if it was not cast into the grave, one is not prohibited from deriving benefit from the grave, indicating that mere designation is insignificant. The Gemara rejects the inference. The same is true even if a non-viable newborn was not cast into the grave. One is still prohibited from deriving benefit from the grave merely by virtue of the designation. Why then does the Baraita say that a non-viable newborn was cast into the grave? The verse serves to exclude the opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who says a non-viable newborn does not take possession of its grave, to render it forbidden even once it is buried there. To counter this opinion, the Baraita teaches us that this opinion is not accepted and a non-viable newborn is treated like any other corpse. The Gemara suggests, Tashema, come in here. Another proof in support of Rava's opinion from a Mishnah, Shekalim 2:5. It says, money left over from the money that was collected for burying the dead must be allocated to the burial of other dead people. The money left over from the money that was collected for burying a particular dead person is given to his heirs. Evidently, money that had been designated for the sake of a dead person but was not actually used for burying him does not become forbidden, and his heirs may use it. The Gemara rejects this proof. With what are we dealing with here? We are dealing with money that had been collected for the deceased during his lifetime. It was thought that a certain individual was soon to die, and money was collected to cover the cost of the burial. Since at the time the money was collected, the person was alive. The money had not been designated for the sake of a dead person. Therefore, one is permitted to derive benefit from it, and it is given to the heirs of the deceased. So the Gemara raises an objection. But we were not taught this. As we learned in the Mishnah, the money left over from the money that was collected for burying the dead must be allocated to burial of other dead people. The money left over from the money that was collected for burying a particular dead person is given to his heirs. And it is taught with regard to this in the Mishnah, in Mishnah and a Baraita. How so? If they collected money for the purpose of burying dead without specification, this is the case about which they said that the money left over from the money that was collected for burying the dead must be allocated to the burial of other dead people. But if they collected money for the sake of this particular dead person, this is the case about which they said that the money left over from the money that was collected for burying a particular dead person is given to his heirs. This indicates that the Mishnah is discussing a case where the money is designated for one who has already died. The Gemara answers, and according to your reasoning, say the latter cause of that same Mishnah, which appears to support the opinion of Abaye. Rabbi Meir says, if money was left over from the sum collected for the burial of a particular dead person, the money may not be touched until Elijah comes and resolves the uncertainty as to whether or not the money is forbidden. Rabbi Natan says, the leftover money shall be used for the laying of another row of stones over the grave of the deceased, or for the sprinkling of fragrant wine before his briar, as he is brought for burial. This indicates that there are certain Tanaim who maintain that mere designation is in fact significant. So the Tanaim, again, are the rabbis from the Mishnah. Rather, Abaye can explain the entire Mishnah according to his line of reasoning, and Rava too can explain the entire Mishnah according to his line of reasoning. The Gemara explains Abaye can explain the entire Mishnah according to his line of reasoning as follows. According to everyone, that is, the first Tana, Rabbi Meir, and Rabbi Natan, mere designation is a significant matter. The first Tana holds that the sum that is fitting to spend for the burial of a particular dead person is encompassed by the prohibition, and the sum that is not fitting to spend is not encompassed by the prohibition. Therefore, whatever money is not required for his burial is given to his heirs, as it was never included in the prohibition. Okay. Rabbi Meir is uncertain as to whether the sum that is not fitting to spend for his burial is encompassed by the prohibition or is not encompassed by the prohibition. Therefore, the money left over may not be touched until Elijah comes and clarifies the matter. And it is obvious to Rabbi Natan that all of the money collected is certainly encompassed by the prohibition, including the money that is not fitting to spend for the deceased burial. Therefore, whatever money is left over should be used for the laying of another row of stones over the grave of the deceased, or for the sprinkling of fragrant wine before his briar. And Rava, too, can explain the Mishnah according to his line of reasoning as follows. According to everyone, that is the first Tana, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Natan, mere designation is nothing, and so the money collected for the burial of a particular dead person does not become forbidden. And the disagreement is about an entirely different matter. The first Tana holds that even though the heirs of the deceased disgraced him by collecting money for his burial, the deceased still forgoes his disgrace for the benefit of his heirs, and therefore the leftover money is given to them. Rabbi Meir is uncertain as to whether the deceased forgoes his disgrace or does not forgo it. Therefore, the leftover money may not be touched until Elijah comes and clarifies the issue. And it is obvious to Rabbi Natan that the deceased does not forgo his disgrace. Therefore, whatever money is left over should be used for the laying of another row of stones over the grave of the deceased, or for the sprinkling of fragrant wine before his briar. The Gemara suggests, come in here, Tashema, another proof in support of Rav's opinion from a Baraita. If the father and the mother of the deceased were throwing garments into the late son's briar so that they would be buried along with him, it is a mitzvah for the others present to save those garments from being lost. This indicates that mere designation is insignificant. As were it significant, one would be prohibited to derive benefit from the garments as soon as the parents cast them into the briar. The Gemara rejects this proof. There, the parents threw the garments into the son's briar because of their bitterness over his death. But they did not really mean to designate garments to be buried with him. The Gemara raises a difficulty. If so, how can one understand that which is taught with regard to this Baraita? Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel said, in what case is this statement said? It is stated with regard to a case where the garments did not yet touch the briar before they were saved. But if they already touched the briar, they are forbidden. And if no importance is ascribed to what is done out of bitterness, why should the garments that touch the briar be forbidden? Okay. Ulai, let me make sure I'm saying this right. So Ula interpreted the Baraita by referring to a case where the garments were thrown into a briar but was to be buried together with the son. It is impossible that those garments might be mistaken for shrouds of the deceased. The sages decreed that it is prohibited to derive benefit from such garments, lest people mistakenly think that just as they are permitted, so too actual shrouds are permitted. There is no proof from here that mere designation is significant and that articles designated for the dead are permanently forbidden. The Gemara suggests, Tashema, come and hear a proof in support of Abaye's opinion from a Baraita. If one fashioned a pouch in which to put phylacteries, it is prohibited to put money in it. If he put phylacteries in it, it is prohibited to put money in it. If he put phylacteries in it, but if he did not designate it beforehand for that purpose, he may still put money in it. The ruling of the first clause indicates that designation is significant. The Gemara rejects this proof. Say that the Baraita should be understood as follows. If one fashioned a pouch for phylacteries and then put phylacteries in it, it is prohibited to put money in it. This is in accordance with the ruling of Rav Chisda, that if one designated a cloth for the purpose of bundling phylacteries in it, and then he wrapped the phylacteries in it, he may no longer use the cloth to hold the money. The Gemara suggests, Tashima, come in here, another baraita that supports the opinion of Rava. If one said to a craftsman, fashion me a case, a teak, for a Torah scroll, or fashion me a bag, nartik, for phylacteries, as long as he has not yet used them for a sacred purpose, it is permitted for him to use them for a mundane purpose. But if he already used them for a sacred purpose, it is prohibited for him to use them for a mundane purpose. This indicates that mere designation is nothing until the item is actually used for the purpose for which it has been designated. The Gemara explains, the matter of whether or not mere designation is significant is a dispute between Tanaim, as it is taught in a baraita. If one took phylacteries and coated them with gold or patched them with the hide of a non-kosher animal, they are unfit. But if one patched them with the hide of a kosher animal, then they are fit. And this is so even though he did not prepare them, that is, the hides, for the sake of their use of a mitzvah. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, even if he patched them with the hide of a kosher animal, they are unfit. And they remain unfit until he prepares them for their sake. So preparing the hide for the sake of a mitzvah is analogous to designate it for that purpose. The first Tana and Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, who disagree as to whether the hide must be prepared for the sake of the mitzvah, differ as to whether designation is significant. In connection with what was stated previously, the Amoraim disagree. So that the rabbis from the Talmud, not the Mishnah. They're later, right? So the Amoraim are later. So in connection with what was stated previously, that the Amoraim disagree whether one is prohibited from deriving benefit from a garment woven for the sake of a dead person. Ravina said to Rava, is there really such a place where the deceased is first placed on a briar and only afterward do they begin to weave a garment for the deceased? Rava said to Ravina, yes, this is practiced on behalf of, for example, the dead of Harpanya. So Harpanya is supposed to be a place in Babylonia, where the people are so poor that they cannot prepare shrouds for themselves during their lifetimes. So, Darash Maremar. So Maremar taught that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Abaye, that mere designation is significant. And the rabbis say that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rava, that mere designation is nothing. The Gemara concludes that the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rava, that mere designation is nothing. Okay, the sages taught in a baraita, with regard to those executed by a Jewish king for crimes that they committed against him, their property belongs to the king. As for those executed by the court for capital transgression, their property belongs to their heirs. Rabbi Yehuda says, even with regard to those executed by a Jewish king, their property belongs to the heirs. The rabbi said to Rabbi Yehuda, but isn't it already stated, arise, go down to meet Ahav, king of Israel, who is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Nebaioth, where he has gone down there to inherit it. 1 Kings 21, verse 18. The wording of the verse indicates that Ahav went down there by right, proving that the property of those executed by the king legally belongs to the king. Rabbi Yehuda said to them, Ahav was Naboth's cousin, the son of his paternal uncle, and therefore he was fit to inherit from him. Accordingly, he took possession of the property in his capacity as an heir and not as king. They said to him, but Naboth had many sons. Why then did they not inherit from him? Rabbi Yehuda said to them, Ahav executed Naboth and also his sons, as it is stated, I have seen yesterday the blood of Naboth and the blood of his sons. 2 Kings 9:26. The Gemara asks, and how do the rabbis counter this claim? The Gemara answers, in their opinion, that verse is referring to the sons who would have issued from him had Naboth not been executed. Ahav was held accountable for the blood of Naboth and for the blood of his unborn children. The Gemara raises a difficulty. Granted, according to the one who says that the property of those executed by the king belongs to the king, that is the reason that it is written that Jezebel arranged for witnesses to falsely testify that Naboth cursed God and the king. 1 Kings 21:13. Since Naboth cursed the king, Ahav could execute him and seize his property. But according to the one who says the property of those executed by the king belongs to the heirs, why do I need the testimony that Naboth cursed the king? It would have been sufficed for the witnesses to testify that he cursed God, in which case he would have been executed by the court, and Ahav would have taken possession of the vineyard as his heir. The Gemara answers, in accordance with your reasoning, that the witnesses testified that Naboth cursed the king so that Ahav could execute him and seize his property. Why do I need the additional testimony that Naboth cursed God? Rather, you must say that the witnesses were instructed to testify that Naboth cursed both God and the king in order to increase the anger of the judges by accusing him of a second offense. So too it can be argued that according to Rabbi Yehuda's reasoning, the witnesses testified that Naboth also cursed the king in order to increase the anger of the judges. No proof can be brought from here that the property of those executed by the king belongs to the king. The Gemara raises another difficulty. Granted, according to the one who says that the property of those executed by the king belongs to the king, that is the reason that it is written, quote, and Yoav fled to the tent of the Lord and caught hold of the horns of the altar. 1 Kings 2:28. Describing Yoav's actions after it became known that he supported Adoniah, and therefore it is written, and he said, I will not leave, for here I will die. 1 Kings 2:30. Yoav did not want to be put to death by the king because he did not want his property to pass into the king's possession. But according to the one who says that the property of those executed by the king belongs to their heirs, what difference did taking refuge in the sanctuary make to him? The Gemara answers, Yoav fled to the sanctuary in order to live a short while longer. Consequently, there is no proof from here to either side of the dispute. The Gemara continues to discuss the incident involving Yoav. After Yoav took refuge in the sanctuary and King Solomon sent Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, to fall upon him, Benaiah ordered Yoav to leave the sanctuary, and thereupon Yoav refused. The verse then states, and Benaiah or Benyahu brought the king word back, saying, so said Yoav, and so he answered me. 1 Kings 2:30. The Gemara explains, Yoav said to him, go and say to Solomon, you cannot perform two actions to this man, that is, to me, Yoav. If you kill him, that is me, you and your descendants will receive the curses with which your father cursed me. And if you do not wish to receive those curses, let him go, so that he may receive the curses with which your father cursed him. And the next verse states, and the king said to him, do as he has said, and fall upon him and bury him. Solomon thereby accepted his father's curses upon himself and his descendants. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, all the curses with which David cursed Yoav were ultimately fulfilled in David's descendants. Due to the curse that Solomon accepted upon himself, David cursed Yoav. Let the house of Yoav never lack, such as are afflicted with a discharge or a leper, or that hold on to a staff, or fall by the sword, or lack bread. 2 Kings 3:29. The Gemara clarifies, the curse of being afflicted with a discharge, such as like a zav, was fulfilled with Solomon's descendants in Rehoboam, as it is written, in King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot, B'merkavah, to flee to Jerusalem, 1 Kings 12:18. And it is written, in whatever saddle, Hamerkav, that he that has a discharge rides upon shall be unclean, Leviticus 15, verse 9. The similarity between the words Merkavah and Merkav indicate that Rehoboam was a Zav. The curse of a leper was fulfilled among Solomon's descendants in Uzziah, as it is written, but when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction. For he transgressed against the Lord his God, and went into the temple of the Lord to burn incense upon the altar of incense. 2 Chronicles 26:16. And it is also written, and leprosy broke out on his forehead. 2 Chronicles 26:19. The curse of those who hold onto a staff was fulfilled among Solomon's descendants in Asa, as it is written concerning him. But in the time of his old age, he was diseased in his feet. 1 Kings 15:23. And Rav Yehuda says that Rav says this means that he was seized with gout, podagra. Marzutra, son of Rav Nachman, said to Rav Nachman, Marzutra, son of Rav Nachman, said to Rav Nachman, what are the circumstances and symptoms of this disease? Rav Nachman said to him, the pain is similar to the pain of a needle piercing live flesh. The Gemara asked, how did Rav Nachman know what gout is like? Well, the Gemara answers, if you wish, say that he himself suffered from the disease. And if you wish, say that he learned it as a tradition from his teacher. And if you wish, say that he knew this through divine inspiration. As the verse states, the secret of the Lord is with them that fear him, and he will show to them his covenant. Psalms 25, verse 14. The curse of those who fall by the sword was fulfilled among Solomon's descendants in Josiah, as it is written, and the archer shot at King Josiah. 2 Chronicles 35:23. And Rav Yehuda says that Rav says they shot him with so many arrows that they turned his whole body into a sieve. The curse of those who lack bread was fulfilled among Solomon's descendants in Jechoniah, as it is written concerning him. And as for his food allowance, there was a continual food allowance given him by the king, a daily portion for every day, all the days of his life. 2 Kings 25:30. Rav Yehuda says that Rav says, this explains the adage that people say, be the one who is cursed and not the one who curses, as a curse eventually returns to the one who curses. So that's pretty much the end. That's actually the very beginning of 49, but that's how it ends there. So that was Daf 48.